Hi, it's Kevin back with another No BS social media update. We've talked in the past about, well, being patient, about looking at it in terms of a marathon and not a sprint. One thing I touched on, I don't know if it was last week's post, to be honest with you, I don't remember exactly when we posted it, was, well, about strategy. So many people look at social media and say, well, I'll just create a Facebook profile or I'll go on Twitter and I'll just do what I do. And you know what? And that may work. I know some very famous, huge, multi-platinum selling artists who, well, have no real strategy. Now, their record company tries to have a strategy for them, or their management company tries to have a strategy, but when it comes to their involvement with social media, and they do have some involvement, there isn't a lot of strategy. And no matter where you're at in your professional life, in your personal life, in your musical career, whatever it happens to be, you've got to have a strategy to it. Even if the strategy doesn't play out properly, it's about tracking and noting. Years ago, when I was in radio, I was, well, literally at the time forced to attend this management seminar with all the other managers in the building. And they were going to teach us about statistical analysis and management. It was called Qualstat. It was a program that was put out. And I'll be honest with you, it was like, well, at first fingernails on a chalkboard to me. It was like going back to school all over again. But that 6-week course changed my life because it made me truly appreciate statistics, data. And I've always been a data guy, I've always been a statistical guy, but it really made me understand about tracking your data, about building a strategy. As I said, with social media, everybody's strategy is completely different. There is no one set strategy. If it were, everybody'd do it, right? And then it may or may not work. But you've got to find your pacing. You've got to find your strategy. And in order to do that, you've got to track things. Can you post to Facebook 3 times a day? What about 6 times a day? What about 12 times a day? Well, it depends. It depends on your audience. And that audience, of course, as it grows, as it evolves, as it changes, will change too. So nothing is static. If you can post 6 times a day to Facebook and you're getting good results and good replies and good likes and good comments and good shares, that's great. But if all of a sudden something changes, you need to be aware of that. You need to say, okay, what's different now? Same thing with Twitter. Some people, I know people are on Twitter 100 times a day. I've got friends who have posted hundreds of thousands of times to Twitter. I know artists who have posted hundreds of thousands of times to Twitter, and it may work for them. For others, it doesn't work so much. Again, you have to understand your strategy. You have to create a strategy. And the way to do that is data. It's the boring part. A lot of what I do in my daily process, getting up every morning, going through the stats, looking at the numbers, looking at the growth, looking at the subtraction, looking at the amount of likes on a Facebook post. How did it change? How did it vary? What happened yesterday? What happened in the world? And two, with social media, because you're really looking at a worldwide audience, in theory, a lot of times what's happening around the world can affect things. What's happening in the news? Could there be a major storm? And if you've got a lot of fans or customers on the East Coast and there's this huge winter storm that comes through, well, that could affect your social media. Now, if they're without power, they may not have computer access. They're not going to be using their battery on their cell phone, on their smartphone, to interact with you on social media. But again, if it's a snowstorm and they're stuck inside for a day or two, but they've got power, well, they may spend more time on the computer. So you need to be aware of those things. Know the surroundings. Know what's going on. It's about looking. It's about understanding the data. Data is key. It's boring. I will tell you this. I tell people, this is how you separate the men from the boys, the girls from the women, whatever, however you want to call it. It's about the data. It's about putting in the time with all the boring stuff behind the scenes. You know what? Taking pictures and putting them up on Instagram or creating cool videos, that's the fun part of social media. Or at least for some people it is. But it's the data. It's the strategy. You need to have a strategy, no matter whether it's even a personal strategy. Because you don't want to upset those friends that are so long lost that you finally reconnected with. You see too many people unlike somebody, or delete a Facebook page, whatever it is, unfollow you on Twitter. Well, there's a reason behind that. And you want to try to minimize that as much as you can, even though you don't necessarily know what's coming. Form a strategy. More tips real soon. No BS, I promise you that.